also have Dr. Samuel with us. Dr. Samuel is a professor and head of community medicine and is a senior epidemiologist associated with Christian Medical College in Ludhiana. He works with Government of Punjab on COVID predictive modeling and many other areas which has helped the entire Punjab government to tide over this COVID crisis. So a warm welcome to Dr. Samuel on behalf of Mercer Marsh Benefits team. In fact, we'll have Dr. Rajiv Agarwal who will be moderating this panel. Dr. Rajiv Agarwal, many of you would have already interacted with him in his capacity as a key account management leader for Mercer Marsh Benefits. He's also spearheading the entire COVID initiative on behalf of Mercer Marsh Benefits team. And he'll be hosting this panel and he'll be moderating the panel. And we look forward to a very intense engagement for next 60 minutes along with the entire team of medical specialists. Thank you so much. With that, I leave the floor open to Dr. Rajiv Agarwal. He will carry forward the discussion. Thank you so much again.
Thank you, Praval, and good afternoon to all of you. And my warm welcome to all the panelists here who have taken out time, today from their very, very busy schedules to have this interaction along with us for all the clients pan-India. Thank you so much. And before I start the conversation, I think on the behalf of the entire MMB and all our clients, I would like to extend our deepest appreciations and gratitude to all of you to bring the front runners in management of COVID. I think health workers as doctors, whatever you have done till date in last 2 years have been phenomenal. And we express our complete gratitude to all of you. Thank you so much once again. So we'll start our conversation with a poll question. Niladri, can we have a poll question? Thank you. What are the top 3 areas concerning you around Omicron and planning return to work?
Dr. Rajiv, the results are there.
Yeah. Yes, Nilal, thank you. So 76% of the people have concerns around long-term COVID. I think very, very crucial, critical aspect of COVID, what we have seen and what we are experiencing post first wave, second wave, and now, Omicron, what we are facing. 70% of the people have raised concerns around impact of Omicron on children and elderly, likely because we all know that there are challenges because vaccinations below 15 years are still not allowed and 15 years have just started. And elderly population because they are the people who are more vulnerable, for infections because of various comorbid conditions, age, as well as lot of elderly population, what we see are also immunocompromised. I think very, very valid concerns. 26% of organizations feel that planning return to work. I think that is again one of the challenge because most of the organizations we feel had already planned to open up their offices starting January 2022 with at least 50-60% of the capacities. But given the effect of Omicron, I think all the plans have got deferred by at least 1 quarter. And now I think organizations are planning that to open up sometime in 1st of April or maybe later than that. And it will all depend upon how Omicron, the wave continues, or probably how do we see the decline in cases, in the coming times. 44% have also raised a concern on mental health. I think a very, very important issue, what we have seen over past 1.5 years, 18 months precisely, wherein, largely people are operating from home. And it's not a very conducive environment when you work in isolation, always glued with your, laptops or iPhones and, working around 24/7. So I think a lot of people have gone through mental health issues. And I think this is a very, very widely accepted concerns. So thank you so much for all these responses. Through this next 30-40 minutes of discussion with our panel experts today, we hope that we'll be able to address some of our your issues and concerns what we have raised just now, and we'll hear it out from our panel, esteemed panel today, from a practitioner side, from an epidemiological aspect, where we are heading in Omicron. So I'll start off the conversation with my first question to the panel, and this will be the question for all the people in the panel. So we hear a very different verbatim when it comes to the end of pandemic. Like what we hear from a WHO Europe scientist, he confirms, and it's today morning, the verbatim is of today morning, that Omicron variant has moved COVID-19 pandemic into a different phase. And they expect that by March, probably 60% of the population, Europe's population, will be infected with Omicron, which is a dominant variant now. And eventually it will lead to end of pandemic, and probably, we can see end of pandemic in Europe. Second verbatim comes from the Director General of WHO. Again, this is today morning, where he confirms that globally, we could see many more new strains, new variants coming into play over the period. So in any case, we should not take any of this variant very lightly. We still need to take precautions. We should not assume that we are heading towards end of pandemic. So these are two verbatims coming in from WHO, the topmost authority which has been giving guidelines to deal with the pandemic so far. What, according to you, from an Indian context, is our current scenario? Do you see that Omicron is a dominant variant currently? And do you see that with cases somewhere, some states it is increasing, some states it has already started, we are seeing a decline? How do you see Omicron coming in, in the Indian context? Dr. Gautam Bhansali, we'd like to start your conversation from your views, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rajiv Agarwal ji. Thanks for giving us such a nice platform where we can discuss about this variant. And this variant is definitely variant of concern, which everybody, I feel aware about this Omicron virus and Omicron variant, you can say. First of all, I can say one thing that about this COVID-19, nobody knows 100% about this COVID-19 virus. And one thing we should be assured that, yes, whatever data are coming, whatever like data for the first wave, second wave, this third wave, or in some country, it is like a fourth or fifth wave also. So as per that data only, we can say about this COVID, that Omicron is definitely not that much as dangerous as that Delta was there. So now, especially if I say about the city like Mumbai or Maharashtra, yes, number of cases are decreasing. Our curve is already that flattened, and now curve is declining mode. If I share data of the today's only, that today Mumbai cases are less than 2,000. In spite of that, we are doing testing more than 40-50,000. So number of cases has decreased significantly in just a couple of weeks, in just 1 week only, you can say. Our positivity rate, which was highest, I still remember that on the 7th January, when that day we have done 72,000 testing. Out of that, more than 22,000 people were positive. Our positivity rate was 30.81% on that day. Today, if I say, then our positivity rate has significantly declined and is now 6.41% only. So cases are very well controlled in Mumbai. We had a study yesterday only, one study we are sending almost many patients that COVID positive report for that genome sequencing. Yesterday only we got one data. Out in that 89% out of that cases we have sent for that genome sequencing, 89% patients are Omicron positive. Few patients are only Delta. So you can say now Omicron is substituting this Delta variant, which can be a good news as far as I know in Mumbai, that Omicron is not giving us that much trouble. Why? Because this is not that much serious. This is not like hardly 0.1% patients goes to hospital, like 0.1% patient goes to ICU, they require oxygen or BiPAP machine sort of. More than 90, 94, 95% patients are asymptomatic. If I say data is about the Mumbai, more than 93, 94% are asymptomatic. Maximum patients are taking treatment at home only. They are becoming all right within a 3 to 5 days only with a very little like doxycycline or azithromycin, whatever, as per the symptomatic treatment only. Hardly 0.1% patient goes to ICU. They require oxygen, or few patients require ventilator also. Out of that also 96% patients are unvaccinated population. So I can say that yes, our vaccine also worked very well against this not only Omicron but Delta variant also. Initially, this is the 8th round of our studies of that genome sequencing, where we see that 89% patients are Omicron. Earlier studies was showing that 30% or 40% was Omicron and 60% was Delta variant only. In spite of that, we have not seen that much bad patients in ICUs, although it was a Delta. Why? I feel personally it was because of the vaccination program, and vaccination is definitely done a wonder thing for as far as this COVID is concerned. So I personally feel in city like Mumbai or Maharashtra, number of cases are decreasing, and by the end of this month, we will see that cases may go almost or maybe almost less than 1,000 or 500 only, which is mostly asymptomatic type of cases. Yes, there are few states which is very much concerned as of today. That is Telangana, Andhra, Karnataka, Kerala. Yes, their cases are still around, you can say the 28,000, 40,000. Karnataka yesterday it was 46,000. Kerala yesterday it was 28,000. 3 days back Kerala was more than 48,000 cases. So number of cases are still there in the different part of the our states. I personally feel by the end of March or mid-March, cases may decrease and chances of that curve may decline from our country. That is by the mid of March. Another variant may come, may not come. Nobody knows about that. Whatever studies we have seen, that only few that Omicron sublineages are there. There's a B 1.2 lineage is there. That new variant, this is coming in the few countries. That some new studies showing it, which is also we can't see in this genome sequencing. That may come, they may not come. I personally feel that we are moving towards the endemic. Cases is decreasing definitely. If you see the history like of the Spanish flu, which was in 1919, there was the first wave, which was very progressive wave. Yes, our country cases was progressive in the first wave. Spanish flu second wave, it was very aggressive in our country or in our in this scenario also. After 100 years, second wave was very much aggressive. Later of the Spanish flu, that third wave was very mild. Same thing is that third wave is mild in our country or worldwide also. So I personally feel after this third wave, it may be like an endemic or it may be like a simple flu sort of. So I feel things will be better after this Omicron wave.
Thank you, Dr. Gautam. I think very, very positive and very assuring note you have started the conversation. So, Dr. Gopal, what is the trend you are seeing, from a Telangana, Hyderabad, and southern region perspective? Since we know that yes, Mumbai definitely, we are seeing the decline in number of cases, but some states like Dr. Gautam mentioned that cases are still increasing, and southern states cases are increasing. So, what has been, as a practitioner, how do you see this trend in Hyderabad and Telangana specifically? You are on mute, Doctor.
Apologies for that. Thank you, Dr. Agarwal, and thank you, Dr. Bansali, for a wide opening statement setting the ripe field for discussion. Both the variant that we are facing now and as a geographical entity, India, and the type of immunity that Indians might have mounted, all these factors are not homogeneous. I mean, we are behaving in different parts of the country as different clusters. And as Dr. Bansali very rightly put, even as we speak, Omicron is throwing up new variants. And as we speak, the vaccination effect though it's very encouraging, is not uniform. There is cell-mediated immunity and there is humoral immunity. And there is emerging expert opinion that cell-mediated immunity is playing a greater role in Omicron than in Delta. So because of these various factors, it's becoming very difficult to take a holistic view of a large geographical country like India. Each part of the country is behaving in a separate pattern. Generally speaking, majority of the south, except Kerala and Karnataka, in Karnataka, Bangalore city in particular, are behaving differently from the northern and western cities. Maybe because of the geographical density, business density, movement density, etc. That's one. And as Dr. Bansali very correctly put, we are still seeing a lot of asymptomatic positive cases and mildly to moderately symptomatic cases swarming around smaller hospitals, OPDs, and clinics. Yes, the admission rates are definitely low as compared to first wave and second wave. And in fact, some people, including Dr. Samuel yesterday, were thinking that we're actually in fourth wave, the Omicron wave being a fourth wave. And some international data is also pointing out towards that way. So if you refer to the current wave as fourth wave, the Omicron wave, the number of cases are very high. The seriousness of cases is low. Hospitalization, especially in the ICU, critical care, and admissions into ventilated units or ensuing mortality is also much lower than the first 2 or 3 waves. But having said that, if you look at the number of positivity that is there in the community, in the society at various parts of the country and various parts of the globe, with different time zones, of course, the number of people off work and off function are still high, because they need either confinement or isolation or social distancing or whatever may be the factors to stop the further spread. That brings us to the question, shall we actually take what WHO is stating seriously, that the pandemic may be ending and is becoming an endemic disease and becoming a communicable endemic disease? That's a matter of statistics and epidemiology. Only when your R0 number is less than 1, then we can call that pandemic is over. And as Dr. Bansali, having all the data at his fingertips, rightly predicted, in our opinion, in my opinion, or my colleagues from this part of the country, it may still take a few weeks for us to say the pandemic is over. Because even socially speaking, not only medically, we see almost in every single family someone or other turning positive every day. Some of them are mild to moderate sick, but yes, they don't need hospitalization. They need a consultation, either teleconsultation or physical consultation, and ensuing treatment, which we'll discuss in the further course of this seminar. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Gopal. So I'll move to Dr. Samuel, from an epidemiological standpoint, I think your views on this particular agenda will be very, very of very paramount importance. What is your view? And also you have been working very closely with Government of Punjab, to set up the entire predictive modeling. And I think you yourself have been involved in, seeing how the waves will peak around and how the decline will happen. So what is your view on when we say that, pandemic turning into an endemic, and whatever, the views shared by Dr. Gautam and Dr. Gopal?
Thank you, Dr. Bansali and Dr. Gopal, for laying down the platform. Well, we need to go back and remember, first, Omicron was identified or announced to the world less than 2 months ago. It was 24th of November. And in 2 months, it has covered, except 35 countries, the whole world. Except for 35 countries, it has covered the whole globe. So that is the speed at which this virus has traveled. It's God's grace, it is our good fortune that this was not like Delta, and the target organ was the throat and the pharynx rather than the lungs, like in the earlier wave. As Dr. Gopal said, if we look at the variants that we have had in our country, we had the original variant, which took around 8 to 9 months to peak. It peaked in August, September last year. And then we had, everyone saying, okay, it has become endemic, it's over. we announced it too early. And then in February, in Maharashtra and Central India, we had a new variant which came in, which moved really fast. But in February, in Punjab, late February, early March, when we looked at it and we predicted that there was something else happening over here, at that time, genomic sampling in Punjab showed that 88% of the variants were the UK variant or the Alpha variant at that time. And it took a month in April when everything was overtaken by the Delta variant, which actually is homegrown. Delta variant went out of India and the other countries had this one. So now we have the fourth variant, the original variant plus 3 others. So this technically is our fourth variant. We had 2 humps in our second variant. Alpha was not too big, but once Delta came in, it overshot any of what we were expecting it to plateau at. Yes, looking at the data that we have, in September, October, we had a sero survey, which showed that around 83% of the unvaccinated, uninfected had antibodies. 83% had antibodies. So they had subclinical. So as any viral infection, 85 to 90% of people will have subclinical infections. They will develop antibodies. And in this population, unvaccinated who did not know they were infected, and those who were vaccinated, and those who had previous infections, Omicron has reinfected them. Some have had much more symptomatic conditions, meaning 3 days, 4 days of severe body ache, fever, diarrhea, chills, night sweats. They had all of these things there. So for us to say that we're going to go into an endemic stage would be a little premature. This virus can keep circulating. If you say endemic, it does not mean that it's going to be less dangerous than it was earlier. Fortunately, Omicron targets the pharynx and oropharynx and produces more immunity. But the long-term effects is something that we have to study a little bit more. We have to wait for it. We have seen in our experience with Omicron that there is people who you would not expect to have symptoms, having severe weakness, people unable to sit for long stretches during that phase, much worse, much similar to what we saw at the original strain, and much similar to what we saw with the Alpha variant also. So it's too early to call that we're at the end game. We need to be vigilant. It took 2 months for this variant to cover the globe. As long as there is a virus somewhere, this virus actually circulates among animals, and it jumped to humans in 2019-20. So nearly 20 years ago, we had SARS, which is the forerunner of this. So it has been around. It does not mean that if you say we're going into the end game, it does not mean it is going to become less virulent or less dangerous. Thank you.
No, very valid, Dr. Clarence. I think your thoughts are absolutely resonating, with the WHO chief's, statement today, where he categorically mentioned that it will be dangerous for us to call out the end of pandemic. Probably we need to be more prepared, in fact, to deal with other mutants, as I started off the conversation with. So thank you so much for these views. Dr. Gautam, now coming back to specifically on Mumbai hospital infrastructure, we see that cases are decreasing definitely. And have you seen these changes in the trends of people requiring hospitalizations? And were we actually prepared, for with the kind of infrastructure we saw in the Delta wave? So any thoughts on this?
Yeah, see, Dr. Rajiv, Yes, we were fully prepared for this third wave, or you can say the fourth wave, whatever, Omicron wave. We were fully prepared. We were having, if you see all the old data, like first wave in our country was in the month of March, February, March. First in that Mumbai, Maharashtra, Kerala, and then rest of the country. Second wave was also in the month of Feb, March, Mumbai, Maharashtra, Kerala, and then rest of the country. So third wave, we were expecting that this may come in the month of January, February. That's why we were preparing everything in Mumbai. As far as health infrastructure is concerned, I am in the task force. I am the chief coordinator for all private hospitals. So right from first wave only, you can say that in the month of June, first wave, June 2020, we prepared everything, especially in the private hospital, because Mumbai geographical things are totally different. It's a densely populated city. Maximum people prefer private hospital because they have their own doctor or family doctor. That concept is there in the Mumbai, and private hospital really dominate in this city. So I personally called CEOs of all private hospitals that time only, and we said only one thing, that this, because that time there was a 2-3 issues. One thing is the private hospital was not ready to give bed for the COVID patient. Everybody was not prepared for the COVID patient, how to tackle these kind of patients, because Mumbai infrastructure is a different. It's a hospitals are in a vertical things. So we don't have different building, different setup. Only Bombay Hospital, who is having 3 buildings. So we gave 1 building for the COVID only, Bombay Hospital. But other hospital, they need to give the 1 floor or 2 floor. That kind of structure was there. So everybody was scared to give their beds or give their hospital, because they thought if they give some floor, few floor for the COVID, then other non-COVID patient may not come or may come, or they will have that kind of different situation. So finally, we had a meeting. I called all the CEOs of the private hospitals, since I'm the chief coordinator for all private hospitals. And there were that time only 2 or 3 hospitals was ready for that COVID patients, and there was an issue about the billing also. There was a huge billing for the patients. So we called all the private hospital CEOs, and we said only one thing, that this time is not for the charity. This time is for the sacrifice. We have to do sacrifice. And then we started that model 80-20, that 80% bed is charged as per the government rate, and only 20% bed will be charged as per the private hospital, their personal rates. That model is still exists in Mumbai. Still we are doing on the same rate and same things, and that's why patients are getting the treatment and everything in the private hospital, and they are getting good care, you can say. In the second wave, yes, situation was different, because second Delta wave was very aggressive wave. That time we were having bed, we were having oxygen, we were having remdesivir, tocilizumab, all medications, everything was well planned. We, in fact, having that proper Google sheet. Every day we were having Google sheet. All private hospital with the municipal corporation, every day we have to enter how many patients we gave remdesivir injections, tocilizumab injections, who name of that patient, name of the doctor, Aadhaar card number, everything was there. So that there should not be black marketing of that remdesivir or that costly medicines that time. So on that Google sheet also we were mentioning everything, and because of that things was very smooth in Mumbai. But that time we were having hospital, bed, oxygen, ventilator, medicines, everything was available. But Delta variant was so bad. We wanted to help people, but we wanted to help patients, but we were helpless. We have seen that young patient was dying in front of us. We were not, before intubating also they collapsed and they died. That type of situation was there in the Delta variant. That maybe because of maximum people were not vaccinated or so on. For the third wave, the whole world was talking about that children may get affected in the third wave. So we should prepare for the third wave. In Mumbai, what we did in the month of October, November only, we planned pediatric jumbo hospitals. And we took 3 private hospitals, pediatric hospital only for the pediatric patients only. We made a private and pediatric jumbo field hospital, where we put some cubicle also for that, because that pediatric that kids will come, then they will not stay alone. We need to keep their mother or father or whoever. So we had a cubicle and that all kind of facilities. We took detail of that oxygen plants, medications, everything should be available. We had the same 80-20, all this kind of things was there in the.
So I think Dr. Bansali, what I could, if I have to summarize this, probably what you're saying is that all efforts to ensure that we are all adequately prepared has been there in place. But
Yes.
fortunately, being the nature of Omicron being more transmissible but less virulent, that
Yes.
need of excessive hospitalization did not arise, or probably it is very,
So
very less consumed.
initially, first week only we needed hospitalization because of the panic. There was a
Right.
panic in the public. That's why we needed more bed and everything. But that all was very smooth. Yes, we were not requiring that much of ventilator, oxygen sort of beds. So health infrastructure-wise concerned, yes, Mumbai was well prepared, well geared up as far as the bed, hospital, everything concerned. Fortunately, things were very smooth and things are going very smoothly as of now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now, probably from the infrastructure planning perspective, I would like to move from the long-term effects of COVID, which we normally know as long COVID as a terminology which is being assigned. So my question will be to Dr. Samuel and Dr. Gopal, from a practitioner as well as from a community medicine perspective. What do you feel long COVID challenges people can face because of long COVID? What are the probable symptoms and what are the precautions you will advise people who haven't got infected through COVID? And we have seen that long COVID can actually exist over 6 months period also, where it takes people to recover. Dr. Samuel, what is your opinion?
Yes, long COVID is something that every day we're learning something new. Long COVID, we've seen with diabetics that it takes 4 to 12 weeks sometimes for their sugars to come under control. There is, you have to keep adjusting their doses almost weekly. If it was under control before they got COVID, this would continue for a longer time. And in most, at least in Punjab, we have nearly 12% of people who are diabetics. We have around 40% obesity, and we have 30% hypertensives. What we're seeing is many of them are having to titrate their doses once again. What was there earlier, there would be upswings and downswings, and there's a lot more with that. Very rare, but we have seen vascular events like DVTs in this one, but we are seeing a larger number of strokes and MIs, even those who have had strokes and MIs in the past. So this is all the vasculitis that is known to occur with SARS-CoV-2. So long COVID, we would have more and more coming in. There are reported myocarditis events of around 40 per lakh in UK. So there will be valvular issues, there would be other problems that we will have to look at. But long COVID is something that needs a lot more study and a lot more vigilance. In fact, ICMR has set up registries for documenting long COVID, and there are centers all over the country reporting to ICMR. So we need to wait for the data to come in. But long COVID is something that we have to deal with.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. So Dr. Gopal, from a practitioner standpoint, so how do you resonate your thoughts around whatever Dr. Samuel said? And what is your experience on long COVID?
To a large extent, I agree with what Dr. Samuel's perspective is, but from clinical perspective, the COVID has first lifestyle sequelae. Even if you completely recover from COVID, the weakness, exhaustion, psychological changes, lifestyle changes persist for a few weeks to a few months sometimes. I myself had COVID in October 2020, and I suffered most of 21. The second one is clinical and pathological sequelae. As Dr. Samuel very correctly put, COVID is basically a vascular disease. It affects the inner lining of the blood vessels called endothelium, and endothelitis, endothelial disruption occur, and that can lead to dysfunction of any vital organ in the body. In order of importance, heart, brain, and lung are the three, and probably kidney the fourth organ that may be affected in long term, even if COVID is resolved. It may be affected from function point of view or blood flow point of view. There may be clots forming in the blood flow to various organs like pulmonary thromboembolism, deep vein thrombosis, thereby debilitating the patient's mobility and function of that particular organ. It may end up in heart attacks, it may end up in strokes, it may end up in kidney failure, intestinal failure, etc. The other one that can actually have is reinfection. COVID reinfection is not unknown, especially among Omicron. We're discussing it on another platform. COVID reinfection can occur, even though if you are vaccinated. So these sequelae can last from a few weeks to a few months. The solution for that is, of course, clinical vigilance, self-checking and follow-up. And some hospitals, including our own hospital, have thrown up post-COVID follow-up programs. Patient need not purposefully come to hospital. It can be teleconsultation as well, and some basic clinical investigations. One of the things that has kept patients debilitated for a very long time, especially in rehabilitation units, is non-resolution of COVID pneumonia and ending up in fibrosis of the lung and ending up as a long-term lung disease, just like in interstitial lung disease or COPD. These people are still suffering, still requiring oxygen, still requiring intermittent ventilator and non-invasive ventilator support in smaller hospitals or in rehabilitation units. So we hope Omicron not affecting lungs, this seriousness of post-COVID sequelae may not be seen with Omicron. But with Delta and Beta, we are continuing to get back some of these patients to our intensive care units or to our floors or to our OPDs. Those sequelae have to be recognized and have to be accounted for.
Yeah, very important messaging. I think, Dr. Gopal, you have thrown this as, while we say that Omicron is mild, but then people who are elderly, people who are immunocompromised, or people, who have certain set of comorbid conditions should get them checked, clinically, and ensure that all line of treatment is being followed, rather than, we see that a lot of times we all get complacent that it is mild or wo chala jayega, so I think specifically for the most vulnerable group, we need to be a little bit more vigilant and we should avoid complacency. I think that's what precisely you wanted to convey. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So moving on, I think, Dr. Gopal, my next question is also to you on the new age treatments. I think that is again one of the most prominent news what we keep hearing on daily basis on specifically on monoclonal antibody treatment and also on antiviral drugs. And there is a very mixed opinion, what we hear from our governing bodies and as well as from various epidemiological experts as well. So some favor it, but largely we see that, even ICMR has not included this under the COVID management protocol,
Yes.
So what do you see that whether all these new age treatments like monoclonal antibodies are really effective, and whether, it can actually prevent the disease from going to a moderate to a critical level?
I think you have asked a very important pivotal questions, which definitely is guiding the main principles of the treatment of the COVID, even in the Omicron era, in the fourth phase. Most of these evidence bases are coming from various large studies done in Europe and US, which are being filtered through the National Institute of Health of US and FDA. Consequent upon their approval, because they are getting the disease first, they are getting the drugs first. Organizations like ICMR and COVID Task Force are also examining and giving their validity or their opinion about these treatments. Now, these can be broadly divided into preventive, pre-exposure prophylaxis, post-exposure prophylaxis, treatment and treatment of COVID and treatment of the complications of COVID. So if you look at preventive, it is essentially about vaccines. I won't talk much about that because that is not my domain of expertise. Vaccine programs have gone through various countries, including India, in a very successful way. They are taking their own path. The second is pre-exposure prophylaxis. Is there a way that the recent monoclonal antibodies like Evishield, for example, the new drug that is coming from US, it has not yet come to India. It is recommended for those patients who could not take vaccine and are going to be exposed to high risk of contracting COVID. It is recommended and it has been approved by National Institute of Health now. Post-exposure prophylaxis are the monoclonal antibodies that you are talking about. There are 3 monoclonal antibodies doing their rounds in the international market. One of them is available in India. The three are basically basilizumab and elisivimab. The second is casirivimab and imidavimab, which is available in India. The third is sotrovimab. All these three are essentially recommended for high-risk patients for post-exposure prophylaxis, that is, once the patient is exposed to Delta variant. But only sotrovimab is recommended for Omicron variant. The first two agents, that is, basilivimab and elisivimab and the casirivimab and imidavimab, that is available in India, are not working seemingly for the Omicron variant. So we have to be very prudent in advising this expensive but essential drug. But this is not without scientific basis. If one prudently advises this drug, it is with full knowledge that the medical group and with the recommendations of international organizations that are recommending these drugs. That brings us to the third stage of actually treatment. In treatment, again, there are three sections. The first section is antivirals, per se antivirals. We started with lopinavir, ritonavir when the first wave started, and it was proved not to be useful. It was junk. Then remdesivir came. There is the Act 1 trial in which remdesivir has shown benefit. Then there was a second trial in which remdesivir could not show benefit, especially in the 12-day treatment. But when the third trial, that is called Pine Tree trial, which recently came, showed remdesivir benefit, remdesivir has again seen its place, including in Omicron variant. So if you don't know what variant you are treating with, it is better to give Omicron. At the same time, two particular drugs, one Paxlovid and second molnupiravir, have been approved by FDA and central American organizations, but are not yet approved by ICMR. There are reasons for that. While Paxlovid is basically an antiviral drug, it has got a lot of side effects. The second one is molnupiravir, which ICMR is not yet endorsing, which is also recommended. Many people are taking it. It's a tablet, but this is basically a ribonucleotase inhibitor. So it has the potential to cause mutagenicity, not only in the human cells, but in the viral cell itself, giving rise to further mutations. So one has to keep this in view before we recommend that.
So the last group, Dr. Gopal, probably, since this will become too technical for our viewers to understand. So I think what you are trying to say that all these new age treatments, they are duly recommended by and approved by FDA, and we will have to believe our medical fraternity whenever they are prescribing it, and it is safe to administer, and we will have to go by their advices and their prescriptions.
That's right, sir. I got only one more point to add. There are two other agents called tocilizumab and baricitinib. These are given to those COVID patients whose inflammation goes out of control. Yeah. So depending on the seriousness of the sickness of the patient and type of virus, with proper approval and proper knowledge of the drugs, we have to depend upon our experts to recommend these drugs and support such recommendations. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gopal.
Thank you.
Now, I think very, very important question. I'll move to Dr. Bhansali. On the vaccination booster dose and the dosages for children, I think these are two important questions. What we are seeing that world over, booster dosages is a phenomenon today. And we have seen, and there are studies which confirms that every booster dose immediately result in increase in antibodies within the system. And one dosage is effective for about 9 months. So how do you see the progression of these booster dosages in India? So do we have to assume and see that probably it will be a yearly phenomenon like what we see in the flu shots? There is this new strains, which are recommended by WHO on twice in a year, and then we have to go for the booster dosages. So how do you see, boosters specifically for COVID?
Yeah, see, Dr. Rajiv, there are definitely some data that booster, or you can say that vaccination program is definitely helping us. If you see the Delta variant, or still in this third wave also, we have initially 60% cases was the Delta variant only. And because in spite of the Delta variant also, severity was not that much. I feel that is the effect of the vaccination only. Started booster dose by the government of India. That recommendations are very clear, like after the 9 months of second dose, you are the eligible for that booster dose. Yes, that booster dose is definitely helping us. After taking the booster dose, if you check your antibody level, that increase like anything more than 250 or something like that. So I personally believe, or I personally feel that booster definitely help us. Everybody should take whenever their turns come. And as far as that thing is concerned, that whether it will be like a seasonal flu shot or like elderly people were taking, or children was also taking like flu shot. Yes, it may be a yearly event after some time to take this flu shot, this sort of flu shot only. So chances are there that booster dose may become a like a flu shot sort.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Bhansali. I think this will help a lot of organizations to lay down the strategies, because companies have been, every company has come forward to ensure that their entire population, not only employees, but their entire families, including parents, get vaccinated as a corporate drive. So I think this, a concept of booster dose and looking at from a long-term strategy will definitely help the organizations to plan their strategies ahead, well in advance. Thank you so much. So Dr. Samuel, children, I think children have been a core of of this subject, and there have been a lot of questions around children vaccination, and even we see that schools have been closed for a long, and from next week some of the state governments have already announced opening of the schools. So how do you feel that children who are not vaccinated specifically, what are probably, how will they fare in fighting with COVID? What has been the historical trends up till now? Whether their immunity systems are strong enough to battle with COVID, even if they are not vaccinated. Any thoughts, any views around this?
School opening is a very sensitive subject for a lot of people. But given what we know with Omicron, many of the state governments and national governments are making a very calculated risk in opening up schools. Two things that are taken into consideration. One is that most of the elderly and vulnerable have been vaccinated and are covered. And second is that from what little we know with Omicron is that it does not produce a very serious illness. Having said that, the risk with Omicron is always there. As we said earlier, myocarditis in 15 to 17-year-olds is on the rise, and not due to vaccines. It is due to the infection. So many of the countries have actually started vaccinating less than 7 to 12-year-olds and less than 7-year-olds, 2 to 7. So yes, we need a safe vaccine for children. Trials are on. Right now we have only one vaccine which is approved for children, but there are 3 or 4 more candidate vaccines which will come into the market. We need to have a vaccine which is safe for children. And so far what we've seen, most of the vaccines are safe. And I would personally say that we should go ahead and look at children getting vaccinated, especially if they have elderly at home, people who are at high risk of complications. So vaccines, definitely, we know we know that it prevents serious illnesses in children. And so, yeah, I would strongly recommend that, if there are any trials and there is a call for children to participate, that we should take our children for these trials so that we have a vaccine which is approved sooner and everyone benefits from that.
Thank you, Dr. Samuel. I think I'm also referring to the seroprevalence reports, which are eventually released by ICMR. I think post-Delta wave, they released the latest report also says that almost 60-70% of the children already have antibodies within them. Probably they were asymptomatic. So I think while, to your point, I think children are in a better and a safe zone, but it is always good to keep taking the precautions. And whenever more vaccines are available, I think immediately we should go ahead and get our children vaccinated. I'm a little conscious on the time. We have 10 minutes left. So probably, and we have a lot of questions in our Q&A, and probably we have clients, we have leaders, who want to put up some direct questions to you. So not wasting much of time, and probably, we can have an open house. And Ima, if you can just check
Yes.
it out and invite some of the key people, who want to raise the questions directly.
Sure, Dr. Rajiv. So we have Gaurav from Amazon. We want to invite him to ask the question from our esteemed panel, and requesting Niladri to unmute his line.
Yeah, sorry, Ima, can you just come again?
Yes, we have Gaurav Gupta from Amazon, requesting you to unmute his line, please.
Yeah, I have unmuted Gaurav's line.
Hello, everyone. And I think this was an interesting discussion. Well, what we would like to understand clearly is that we overpassed, I would call it clearly overpassed 2 years. We have been seeing trends of multiple waves coming in, going off. How are we foreseeing these trends subject to Omicron? And right now, as we understand that even the Omicron surge in India hasn't been in a similar manner like what we have seen in the Western countries, where majority of the cases were Omicron driven, versus in India, Omicron is still to cover a significant set of population. So looking at that, how are we expecting the future course of COVID-19 to evolve specifically for India? In some other countries, they are projecting that with Omicron spreading wings in a bigger manner, the future, it may continue to remain one of the prominent variants, and people may tend to live with that. But that is something which might not apply for our country.
So Gaurav, you want to pose this question to any specific panelist, or it is open?
So I think
to
anyone who may want to pick this up.
Dr. Gautam, you would like to pick this up?
Yeah, Joe. What I personally feel that that the way Omicron behave in our country, like number of cases, if you see, especially in the city like Mumbai, in the last week of December, number of cases was increasing. Like first week of January, number of cases was 8,000, 9,000, and highest cases was on 7th January. It was 22,000, and then within a week only number of cases was decreasing. It was not happen in the other country also. So in our country, it was very much aggressive, but decline was also very highly aggressive. So I personally believe that this Omicron is going to stay in our country, as far as our country is concerned, not more than 2 months. And after that, I think things will be totally open. Like in Mumbai, we have taken a decision to open up schools. Like even in last 2 years, first time we have opened pre-primary school also. So that kind of decision, I think we can take, and for the whole in our country, maybe in a month or 2 months.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gaurav.
Dr. Rajiv.
Thanks, Doctor.
Yes, we have Nandini S from Shell. We want to invite him to put up her question.
Yeah.
Niladri, if you could unmute her line, please.
Yeah, we have unmuted Nandini.
Hi, good evening. I hope you can hear me all right.
Yes, yes.
So there is some interesting tweet or some news that I read that recently there is another Omicron variant that comes across, and then one of the symptoms, maybe it affects the inner ear, etc. So my question is twofold. One is, of course, we are learning about variants every day, and the probably the areas which it affects are differing by the variant, of course. So one is, how do we really know the source of this, whether these are really going to happen or not? Because there is always this media glare that happens, plus there is something that happens in reality as well. Secondly, whether this was something authentic that came across. Can you throw a bit more detail on that if it's possible?
So for this new variant, I will answer. For this new variant, I also heard this news today morning only. In the other part of the world, there are, yes, this is a new variant like Omicron BA.1.2. That is there. Yesterday only, they are saying that 12 cases they found in a city, Indore, Madhya Pradesh. Indore, they found 12 cases, and that is infecting lungs also. But maximum of that patients are the elderly people, but still they are trying to do that genome sequencing, and they are saying that genome sequencing is not possible for this new variant. So studies is going on about this, or some sort of research is also going on about this. But yes, this kind of news is there in the media. And today only somebody asked me about this. So, but not yet confirmed by the officials.
Sir, but deep ear pain has also been a feature towards the end of the Delta variant. A lot of ENT
Yes.
specialists have reported severe otolgia, what we call as ear pain, inner ear
Ear
pain.
pain.
Yeah, it is an extension of respiratory epithelium itself.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, doctor. We have Dipali Punia. She is from IHS Market and would like to open her line. Ladri, you can open Dipali's line. Dipali, you are still there? Yeah, sister. Yes.
Hi, thank you so much for the session. Very engaging. I think I have two questions here. One is around understanding the efficacy of our vaccination in terms of what is the effectiveness time frame, and by when do we start to see booster shots coming out for people other than our senior citizens. And the second question is more long term. Really, we know, are we saying that we are going to stay in this world of uncertainty? And what does it mean from a returning to office standpoint? What are things that our organizations can look at permanently doing to start to build some anchor days to have people come in, right? And build those collaboration and connectivities.
Dr. Samuel, would you like to take this?
Sure, I'll go ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, an interesting question, and interesting observation. But one thing which we have to understand is epidemics, pandemics will keep on happening. And we have to have the new normal. We have to be able to, given our current situation, we are actually placed at a point where we can say that, very safely that, yes, opening schools, going back to work in the next 3 to 4 months, provided no new variant appears, which will throw a spanner into the works. But yes, with having nearly 50% of our population vaccinated, and if you have your workforces totally vaccinated, there are requests asking for a shorter gap between the booster and the second dose, asking it to be reduced to 6 months or 5 months. But when you have a population which is protected by vaccine or natural infection, the chances of disruption reduces. So going back to nearly normal is something that you can expect in the next 3 to 6 months. But it is a new normal. It's not like as before.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Samuel. I think we should probably get into another conversation in 6 months to see whether the statement that you're making now stands true then at that time or not. But thank you.
Thanks, Dipali. Thanks. We have Amit Sharma. He would like to post a question. Amit, you are there? Hi, Amit.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, Amit, we can hear.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, first of all, thanks to all of you to put the very good questions. So we are having a lot of clarity now with and Rajiv ji and all the doctors. It's really a pleasure to and great to attend this meeting. Second thing, I have one question regarding children's perspective, because as you told, like as Dr. Bhansali told regarding opening the schools, but it is not safer, right? Till the time the small children, pre-primary children, like they are from 5 above until 10 below, they do not have any vaccine, and going to school will be very much unsafer for them. So how can we protect, like, how can we give them like a good environment to settle to that school thing? Any suggestion or any pointers for that?
Generally speaking, your precaution levels across the
Yes.
society, the social behavior have to change. I mean, disease prevention and infection prevention is an ongoing saga for last 400 to 500 years. And with each pandemic, we have learned serious, important, but costly lessons. And inter-pandemic periods are reducing. Actually, the period between two pandemics are reducing. So we have to inculcate in our children a culture of safety and a culture of safety into our workplace, including our schools. And that's the only permanent solution. When and if vaccine comes, we should not hesitate to put our children to the vaccination as our doctors would advise. I'm not a pediatrician though, but as our pediatricians would advise, as our immunologists should advise. That only is the lasting solution. We can't go on finding treatment for every single disease that happens. It takes time and it's expensive, both from a human resource point of view and finance point of view.
Thanks, Dr. Gopal. Dr. Gopal, we also had one more question on the tab out there about children below 5 years. And
Yes,
it's now declared publicly that children below 5 years may not need a vaccine. So, or may not need to actually wear a mask. Sorry, not the vaccine, may not need to wear a mask. So, how does it give us comfort that yes, children below 5 and around that age are safer than others? And what makes us believe?
I wouldn't stick my neck out on that, Mr. Kalia. I don't know what is the strength of the evidence for saying that children below 5 who are not vaccinated, especially, and going to be in cluster schools, need not wear masks. The reverse is happening in some of the more upper echelons of American and European society. I am seeing children actually wearing masks. I don't know where this recommendation comes from, but I would definitely verify that recommendation and get back to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gopal. I did read that in some place that your children below 5 years may not have to wear mask. But yeah, thanks so much for the sound of, for cautioning us on that. And I think we should be mindful of all this. Thank you so much. We have Vaibhav from PayPal. Vaibhav, you are there. Nilad, you'd like to unmute Vaibhav?
Well, there are multiple Vaibhavs, so I need to know the full name.
Vaibhav Singhal from PayPal.
Praval, am I audible?
Yes, Vaibhav, you are.
Hey, Praval, thanks for the opportunity. So my question is a bit straightforward. I see a lot of confusion around how to read an Rdpcr report, and these are questions which came up big time in a session which we did internally in our organization, where many employees reached out. So there are different things being provided in Rdpcr report, like CT levels, right? Along with other things. So how should one interpret this? Because the CT level precisely is creating a lot of confusion. People are connoting it differently. Is it noteworthy, or is it something which one should just leave to the doctor and not fuss too much about? We'd love to hear from the esteemed panels.
Dr. Samuel, would you like to, Dr. Gautam?
If you would
Yeah,
like
see that you should just, I think, see only whether it's detected or not detected. That is more than enough for everybody, because that CT value, this is called as a COVID threshold value. This is not that much significant at all. As yes, some people are saying that if it is a less than 15 or less than 20, then disease may be severe, or more than 20, disease is not severe, it may be mild to moderate, but that is not true at all. Yes, if it is detected, it means positive. Non-detected, it means not positive. You should see your symptoms. Symptoms are very, very important in this kind of disease.
And I think, Dr. Gautam, one important aspect to this, what we have seen is that even today within the protocols, doctors do not advise to go for a repetitive test as well, So there is, if there is no fever for continuous 3 days, then probably you can actually move out of isolation, and you are treated as a non-COVID patient. Because a lot of times we have seen that Rt-PCR report can still be positive, for many more time.
That's true, sir. Only 2 days ago, ICMR has given out a note on whom to test, in which simple contacts, asymptomatic people after 2 or 3 days need not be tested.
Yes.
Thanks so much.
In fact, in Maharashtra, we say that after 5 days, first day of symptom, after 5 days, if you are asymptomatic, no need to repeat it, you can resume your work.
Okay. Thanks so much. This is very helpful. We have Vamsi Kande. Vamsi, would you like to come online and ask us? Hi, Vamsi. Niladri, you can unmute Vamsi.
We've unmuted both the Vamsis.
Okay.
Praval, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Vamsi. Hi.
Okay. Hi, Praval. Thanks. It was a nice presentation and a nice question and answer session. My question is here, as we have seen the initial question related to the long-term COVID. Okay. So as Dr. Gopal and everyone said that, so epithelial cells will get impacted, all the organs will get impacted in the long-term COVID. Okay. So as and when a person is exposed to COVID, okay, if that person is given as antiviral drugs, okay, whatever listed by Dr. Gopal, okay, can we avoid these long-term COVID effects to minimize organ failures, okay? Is that can be possible? Especially this doubt is there in our minds, okay, as and when we want to step out into office. So if we keep on exposing these different types of variants, okay, especially long-term COVID make symptoms may come, okay, can we minimize by taking these antiviral drugs, especially this remdesivir or other molnupiravir or other drugs, okay? So if we take these type of drugs as and when a person is affected twice or once or twice, okay, is that can be advisable?
Thank you, Dr. Vamsi, Mr. Vamsi. First of all, these drugs like molnupiravir or remdesivir have got very clear-cut indications in COVID. They are repurposed drugs. They're not meant for this disease alone. Second thing is, these are meant either for prevention of the disease of an exposed patient or treatment of a disease who has actually turned symptomatic. They are not for future prevention. They don't prevent future disease. Vaccines only can prevent future disease. Even that is for how much time is yet to be investigated, because we are in the first 1 or 1.5 years of the vaccine period. Now, the anxiety with people such as you and me have over the long period of time that we may either get COVID again or suffer from one of the COVID sequelae is a realistic one. We have to take due precautions not to get exposed in the first place. The last thing is, in medical realm, we have started taking history of COVID as a risk factor. If a patient comes with a new symptomatology, one of the questions we are asking is, did you get COVID in the last 1.5 years? So it remains a realistic risk factor. How much disease you got, whether your vascular got involved, lungs got involved, is an individual matter. And that does not change the particular categorization of the current evaluation. So stay rest assured that if you have taken your vaccine and are taking preventive measures, the chances of getting COVID again or one of the COVID sequelae symptoms can be minimized, but is not zero.
I think more than medicines, a rehabilitation program will be
Yes,
much better and advisable for a long COVID protection and prevention.
Healthy lifestyle, nutrition, etc.
Yeah.
Thank you
so much. Thank you so much. We have Sunil, Sonal, and a couple of more people asking us questions. Yes, but I also understand that we don't have the luxury of time here. We have already past 4:40 now. So Sunil, would you like to quickly ask us questions here?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Sunil, we can hear you.
Yeah. So I will ask straight question. See, this Omicron variant we are seeing is like spreading so fast when compared to Delta, right? So what extra precautions do you have to take for Omicron when compared to Delta? Because when Delta, we see like we used to maintain 6 feet distance or distance they used to tell, right? So that it will not get affected. But Omicron is spreading very fast and we don't know how it really is spreading. So as a citizen, right? I mean, what precautions, whether we can go on the road and roam freely or, I mean, even few people are there, we get scared whether it gets transmitted so easily because it's spreading so fast, right? So what precautions extra precautions do you have to take care when compared to Delta?
I think the most important precaution is the masking. Mask is your biggest weapon. Mask is your biggest vaccination also. So masking and secondly sanitization. These are the best.
Wonderful.
So masking is again like we have to make a double mask, or is there any specific recommendation?
It should be fully fitted mask. It should be up to your total nose. It should not be here or it should not be here. It should be complete cover your mask face with nose.
Thanks, Dr. Gautam. Thanks. Sonal, you'd like to go next? Or we can move to Nilesh Pandey. Hi, Nilesh. Okay, I think we don't have both these gentlemen and the lady here with us, I believe. So with this, I'd like to thank you so much, first of all the participants here and the eminent panel of medical speakers, Dr. Samuel, Dr. Gopal, Dr. Bansali. Thanks so much for joining us today. We have had the privilege to have you with us for last more than an hour now. Thanks so much for your valuable time and all the insights that you shared with us. Dr. Rajiv, thank you so much for anchoring the program. With this, I'd like to bring an end to the presentation here. We'll share the recording of this webinar with anyone who'd want to have a copy of this, and we'll also be there to always support you for any further support that you need around COVID and beyond. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Kalja and
Thank you,
Dr.
Praval. Thank you.
Thank you so much.